Anybody that has a computer or can, pick up a cookbook can find low-fat, healthy recipes. It's not hard. Oh my gosh, you can Google anything anymore. Just be real careful. Don't Google pasties. I was doing a class here. And whatever you do, don't Google pasties at work. But I was teaching. Pasties with a short A is what we're after. Yeah, that was like a Google giggle moment or whatever. But, so anybody can pull up those kinds of recipes. What I try to do is to teach people about foods so that when you come home, and like say you go to the farmer's market or say you go to the grocery store or the produce place and they've got beautiful produce, you take it home, it's like, okay, now what am I going to do with it? So that's what I try to do. So I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for doing that today. Hopefully what you can smell is one of my favorite soups. It's called Butternut and Friends. If you have ever picked up a recipe, and the recipe says, cut, chop, slice, dice, and you turn the page thinking this is going to take me all day. That's what I run into when I'm working with foods and stuff. So one of the things that I wanted to show is a really easy way to work with some of the fruits and vegetables that you see here today. Bell peppers are a classic example, and I can actually teach you 3 or 4 different things with the bell pepper. How many of you have ever heard that a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife? Okay, everybody has heard that, right? Try telling that to somebody who cuts their finger off. And you see all the time on the TV shows, the professional chefs, where they mix themselves too. So you have to be careful, even though you do have a sharp knife. And one of the ways to do that, and to this day, even with as much as I cook and stuff, to this day, I still make sure that I use the basic principles. And when I teach kids classes and when I teach adults classes, I still do it. And then the second thing I wanted to point out is that it doesn't make a hoot of difference if you have rock star knife skills or if you're just okay with a knife. It doesn't make a difference. The bottom line is, as long as this gets cut up into quarters or slices or whatever, it doesn't make any difference because, for example, and I'll show you this right here, I always like to use what I call a safety cut in vegetables, and you'll see me doing that 2 or 3 times. This pepper was not going to stand up on its own, but I know what the inside of a bell pepper looks like. I know that the seeds don't go all the way down. If I cut off the bottom like this, I know that that's going to set. So I can start at the top here, and I can cut down and around, just like this right here. I'm not wasting any of the pepper, and I'm also not getting any seeds on my cutting board to speak of. So, except for those 3 right there. So this is a really neat way. When you lap into a pepper, or if you try to scoop it out, you make the seeds loose, and then they get all over the place, so you might be cleaning up and cutting up. This is ready for the trash, just like that. The other thing is, how many of you have ever worked with hot peppers, jalapenos, or anything?
My husband just did your recipe. Don't touch your hands to your eyes.
Exactly. And there's actually, has anybody heard of if anybody's ever put liniment on capsaicin? Have you ever heard of capsaicin? Capsaicin is a heat source. It's the heat that's in peppers, and they also use it for liniments and things like that too. But we like it because it tastes good. I mean, it's got a little bit of heat to it. But it's actually an oil-based product, and when it's in the food like this, if you touch your hands to it, because it's oil-based, even if you wash, it's not going to come off on your hands. It's going to stay on, even with soap and that type of thing.
And shampoo.
In shampoo, because it's not an oil-cutting thing. So what I do is tell people, you saw the stem on the pepper, exact same thing when you're working with hot peppers. If it's a jalapeno or whatever, have a stem cut off, you've got your safety cut down and around the seed pod, and then you're not handling it. Potatoes are interesting. I love them because the flavor that they give and the texture that they give are spectacular. However, for people that have to be careful of carbs, or if you're watching a low-carb diet, you can actually leave the sweet potatoes out and add extra squash in. What you're basically going for each recipe, this is what will happen when it's a little bit more. Basically what you're going for each recipe is about 2 pounds of vegetables to about 2 cups of
Squash is less carbs
than a potato, yeah. There are still, anytime you have a sweet vegetable like corn or peas or squash or whatever, they have a little bit of starch in them. And when you heat that starch converts to carbs, and it converts to sugars then, and it gets a little bit sweet. So you're kind of trading flavor for taking on a little bit of carbs. So if you're a super, super low carb way to make this would be to use just tomatoes and onions and the zucchinis and things like that. So, and when you're looking at what kind, there's something called a glycemic index that you can take a peek at, and if you just Google that, it'll pop up and you can print it. And it'll show different levels on the glycemic index, and they basically measure carbs like that because that's what your body, or you would want to do it with a teaspoon. Take the curvature of the spoon right underneath the skin, and you know that you've got it right when you can lift it up and hold it. So you hold the spoon steady and just rotate the kiwi right around just like this. Give it a little squeeze, and we are totally at the heart of apple season right now, especially in Michigan. All the beautiful apples are out there. Did anybody hit Meijer last week when Honey Crisps were on sale?
Oh yeah.
I know they're so good. This week, a lot of they are good. This week, a lot of the other apples are on sale. And I love, and so does my husband, taking a fresh apple to work. And I do not bite into apples anymore. I mean, I always did as a kid, but now I just don't. I like to have them cut up. But if I cut it up early in the day and I'm out running around or whatever, or I send them, if anybody's still packing lunches for the kids, you send them and then they turn. A little trick that I like to point out is to take lemon lime soda. Regular, diet, flat, Faygo, 7-Up, it makes no hoot of difference which one you're using. Any kind of a lemon lime soda, it actually has enough citric acid in it to keep apples from turning. Now, what I'm going to do...
Or you can take your pampered soft little thing and bring it with you everywhere.
Yeah, you could take it with you. Say you only have one. So what I'm going to do is cut these up. Do you take it with you to work? So when you wedge your apples or cut up your apples or whatever you're doing, just dip them in a little bit of lemon lime soda. And I'll do a few of these. If you were eating it right now, you wouldn't have to do this.
Is that kind of what they do when they sell them? You can buy them now like at Costco in a bag.
Yes. It doesn't
they?
have pop in it, but it's got
With
citric acid.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's enough. What the deal is, there's enough citric acid in the. Who said beer? Kathy, did you go over there?
Yeah, I'm over there now.
There's enough citric acid in it. To do this, and that's what
Sangria, there you go.
that would be perfect. But I think they frown it at school. This whole